Stephane, welcome back. First question really is about trying to get a clear fix on where Circles Square's thinking is in terms of the future of digital and how it should be manipulated, used to the benefits of brands on airport and outside airport.
Well, thank you, Peter. I think it's a very relevant question these days. We've all probably have had a lot of conversation over the past few months about digital and what the role of digital should be in travel retail. Some people might see it as the new holy grail. Let's invest in digital and this is going to save us. Some people still have their doubt, but I think everyone is talking about it. How do we use it to help us get back to our numbers? And I think to some extent, it's been a bit of a wake-up call for the industry. This COVID crisis that is happening at the moment, because if you think about it, we've had it pretty easy, right? We've had a passenger growth pretty much steady over the years, whatever the numbers are, maybe 6, 7, 8% every year, and that means it's quite easy for brands and retailers to make their numbers. You take what you've done the previous year. You do a little bit more creative, change a few things, and bingo, you got your new promotion and you make your numbers. So I think this created a bit of a lazy environment in travel retail. No one was really incentivized to make some changes and to look outside of the traditional model that's always been used, tried and tested in travel retail. But now, because less people are going to be traveling, and depending on the estimates that you look at, it's gonna last until 2023 or 2024. And if there's less people traveling, it means that your relative numbers become more important. You need to touch more people if you want to make the same number as before. So that's the reason why we need to now start thinking about increasing our footfall, increasing our conversion in airport, in our store, and in our activations. So how do we do that? Well, I believe this is really about digital. This is how we can start to engage travelers before they get to the airport, start talking to them, engaging with them, driving them to the store and giving them in the store the actual physical experiences that they're looking for.
So what are you telling your clients right now? What are you advising your clients to do? I mean, are they going to have to completely reconstitute their strategies to align it better with the new age?
No, I think it's not about we're doing a completely new strategy, right? The same strategy still applies. It's just a matter of changing a little bit the way you see how you communicate to your clients, and changing a little bit how you allocate your budget. It's not even a matter of spending more, but it's a matter of spending in the right place to obtain your objective, to get to your objective, right? So, for example, you can now start quite accurately targeting people before they get to the airport. So we offer this to our clients. We can tell them you can target in most airports people who are going to be traveling in the coming, say, 2 weeks, because that's when people start thinking about purchasing in duty free. And if you start talking to these people before, you can engage them online. When you engage them online, there's 2 different things you can do online, right? The first one is try to engage them with a new product. Because obviously, if you have a new product, you're not going to change your schedule of launching new products. But if you have a new product, you can start talking to people online. You can start teasing them, trying to bring them to your store so they're excited and they come to discover it. And this is important to bring them to your store, right? When you have a new product, you're not going to purchase a new product without knowing what it is. And I think the best example is probably the perfume or cosmetics, and even whiskeys actually, or any liquor. You're not going to purchase a new perfume without having the opportunity to try it on and see what it smells like. So you can engage people online, and then you drive them to the physical experience where they can actually interact with the product and do all of these, the physical part of the experience that can't be done online. And then the second part that you can do that still needs to be part of your strategy is that once you engage with people before they get to the airport, say 2-3 weeks before they get to the airport, you can start planting the seeds that they need to think about duty-free purchase, right? First of all, I think everyone who's going to be traveling in the next year will most likely be reuniting with friends or family or colleagues and so on. So you can remind them that, hey, a gift might be a good idea. And then there's also probably there will be, and depends maybe on the nationalities and the locations, but there might be a little bit of a fear of some people to get into the stores and the unknown of the stores, the COVID and all of this. So you can also remind them that, hey, you can do your purchase now. And then when you get to the airport, it's all done, it's ready for you, it's waiting in the bag, someone's going to give it to you, and you're done with your purchase. So you can start planting this seed into people's mind and use the existing e-commerce solutions that most of the retailers have put in place, and you leverage the click and collect infrastructures that they have to actually start selling before people get to the airport.
But social media is pivotal to this, of course. It has to be inextricably linked and integrated into any campaign that you have.
It is, because it is the only way to touch people, right? You need to find a way to get to the people before they get to the airport. So it's obviously a domain we've been thinking a lot about, because this is an integral part of a successful campaign, who you target and who you can reach. And there's been a lot of discussions, right, about getting the airlines data. And obviously, airlines data are the absolute holy grail. Everyone's talking about it in the industry. We need to be sharing the data. We need to have the airline on board, and so we can use this data and target people when they're going to be traveling just before. We know everything about them. We know their departure airport, arrival airport, social demographics. We know everything about them. But the problem is airlines are notoriously not the ones who share the most their data, right? So it's very complicated to have it. So we have to find a different way. And the different way is to be creative and try to target people on social media. So we're not using just Facebook, Instagram, or WeChat. There's a whole bunch of different partners, from the OTAs, from specialized data providers, from all of the social medias. And if you mix all of them and do a little bit of a magic in there in terms of media planning, then you can get to a point where you can be quite accurate. Obviously, you're not going to touch everyone, but you can be quite accurate as to who you're targeting.
Your client base, how many of them have piggybacked on this and are going to be adapting this new form of communication related to their brands to the traveling passenger? How many of them are getting on board? Because we're behind the curve as a business, as you alluded to earlier. So is it going to be this year, next year? Because we're slow, and it's time to get off the potty and actually address it without actually over-egging the digital budgets, because some people can knee-jerk and say it's all got to digital. I know many actually have in some respects, and that's the wrong policy. The shift is slow, it evolves, but it needs to happen now. So in terms of timeline, where are your clients at the moment?
So you're absolutely right. We are in travel retail behind the curve. If you look at all of the local markets, these are solutions that have been implemented for a very long time, right? It's quite commonplace to start targeting people, and everybody's experienced this, and whether it's on LinkedIn or on Facebook or anywhere. But in travel retail, it's fairly new. What we have done, and I think we've been one of the pioneers of pre-travel targeting. We started this a bit more than a year ago, actually a year and a half ago, with Luxottica. And we've planned a campaign with Luxottica, the owner of Oakley and Ray-Ban. And we've planned a campaign in Hamburg Airport where we're targeting people on social media before they traveled. Give them a bit of a hook, so they would click on our advertisement and be driven into an online brand world, where they would have the opportunity to download a digital coupon, which, if redeemed at the activation, would offer them the opportunity to have an instant prize or the big prize of the promotion. So I guess the idea there, it's a clever marketing trick to push people to go to each step of the process, right? But the bottom line is, touch people before they travel, drive them onto your own little platform where you can actually control the narrative. You have the first discussion, the first contact with the customers, not the retailer, but yourself as a brand. And then you drive them to your touch point, your physical touch point, whether it's an activation or a shop. So in terms of timeline, we've tested this last year. So the first time we've done it was last summer. We've taken a lot of learnings on this. We know this is the right way forward. And so what we've decided now to do after last year's trial is that we've started to develop a platform, right? It's a digital platform that does pretty much all of this, including the driving to the e-commerce website, so driving to physical store and driving to e-commerce. We've developed it internally, and this is something we are approaching brands right now at the moment to discuss with them and to see how we can use this to implement in travel retail for their coming campaign next year. And I think it is exactly the right time because, again, everyone's talking about digital, everyone's trying to find new ways of communicating with their shoppers, new ways of engaging. So it is, in a way, thanks to this crisis, the best time for people to start looking into this.
Are there any campaigns that have actually impressed you, that have actually locked onto your thoughts beyond your own campaign? Anything else out there in the market that actually is a good kind of benchmark for people to look at?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. Unfortunately, not in travel retail, and most of them are. I mean, I'm based in Hong Kong, and I see a lot of stuff that are done at the moment in Asia and especially in China. And I think the China consumer is a bit more advanced also in terms of the way they interact with social media, the way they understand that a shopper journey is an integral part that integrates the digital and the physical. So then I think they're a bit more in advance in that, on all of these aspects. And one of the great example that I've seen recently is Burberry. They've just opened a flagship store in Shenzhen. And the flagship store they've opened in Shenzhen, they've done it in partnership with Tencent. Tencent is the tech giant that owns WeChat. And the store's been basically developed around a WeChat mini program, which is like kind of a small website within WeChat. And everything in the store is linked to this WeChat mini program, right? You've got interactive window displays that react to you personally as an individual. You would have a different interaction. The product discovery, the product tags, you can use them in there. You've got all of the in-store engagement. You've got rewards. You even have your own personal avatar that lives on this digital world. So everything that you are in contact with the brand lives in the store. Obviously, you interact with it with your digital device, but you also live outside of the store, right? Burberry is a great example of how virtual and digital are merging in terms of shopper experience. And it is a great experience for local market, but obviously in travel retail, things are different and we've got our own limitations and we all know them, right? We've got primarily they are travelers coming to the airport, they are not shoppers. So it changes the dynamics a lot. But what it tells us, initiatives like the Burberry store tell us that the role of the store has to change, and it has to change in travel retail as well. It might not be as crazy and as integrated as the Burberry store, but we need to rethink our model as well. We need to get away from the transactional part of a store. We need to get away from the stock holding part of a store, and we need to keep really in the store the stuff you can't do on your phone, basically. You need to keep in the store the experience, the engagement, the living the physical product.
If there was a call to action that you would say to the viewing audience, what would it be?
Join the revolution. It is time. It is time to change. It is time to do things a little bit differently, especially in travel retail. I've said it before. We've had it so easy that no one's really been challenged to do things a little bit differently. So we need to now start to change things, to see things differently, to try new things. And all of this is about just having an open mind, thinking, focusing on the experience, focusing on what we can give to the customers. Philip has said repeatedly, stores need to stop waiting for a best store design award. They should be competing for best shopper experience award, because at the end of the day, it is the shopper that is important. That's the shopper we need to think about. Whether it's on the digital world, when we target them, when we try to talk to them and engage them before they get to the airport, or at the airport, it all should revolve around the shopper. Not about the shop, not about the retailer, not about the airline. It's about the individual who is coming there.
So rattling the cage is not enough in itself. You've actually got to pull the bars out and start completely anew. So rethink, repurpose, reimagine. Stephane Zermatten, thank you for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Philip, what do you think are the 3 driving principles that should form the pillars for airport retail theatre?
Good question. I think we're looking at what are the 3 pillars that we need to drive future airport theatre, and they are omni-channel, terrible word but interesting meaning, experience and price. Omni-channel. Let's start with that. A lot of people use the term but don't understand what it means. I don't think we should get into the nitty-gritty of all that right now. But what it doesn't mean is all the channels on all the time, communicating to everybody the same thing, because that is just going to mean that everything is a boring mass of white noise. Absolutely. It needs to be targeted. What we can do is we can use the data that we can get hold of, hopefully through the collaboration of airlines, airports, retailers and brands, to look at pre-travel engagement. That's where our little piece of digital comes in. To understand what people want to do, because how people want to shop is incredibly important. Everybody shops slightly differently. We don't want to just put people into boxes and say, well, we've got 3 different types of shopper. There's A, B, and C. That's not the case, because at the moment people can jump, people can shift from one to another, and more frequently they'll all be option D, E, so it'll change. So understanding that is crucial, and it's not really necessarily about omni-channel, but more or less really turning the channel around and seeing as the shopper being the channel, because a shopper can switch at any particular moment. They are fluid. The way they work is they have a device, a smartphone in their pocket. They're permanently connected. You may be trying on a pair of sunglasses and decide to take a snap of yourself and send it to somebody and ask them what they think. In fact, people might even do it using their social media, and they might get a response back. Well, if we're smart enough and we understand that, we can jump in on that, and we can actually encourage them to do this. We can encourage somebody in our world of right now social distancing to virtually try on 4 pairs of sunglasses.
Yes.
That we've already used technology to ascertain what face shape you have, so that these are our recommendations.
That's all doable right now,
All
isn't it?
totally doable right now.
Yeah.
You can send this on your Twitter feed, your Instagram, your TikTok, whatever it is. Your friends, your social network can respond and say to you, you should definitely pick sunglasses pair number 3. And we can respond by even offering them a price reduction if we need to, or maybe better still, an enhanced reason to buy, something value added rather than reducing the value. All of that works beautifully and harmoniously, and at any point you can, as a shopper, travel between any of these. It's totally and utterly seamless. And if we can remove those points of friction, we'll always have our sale, and our sale will not be a sale for Amazon or a downtown store. It remains a GT sale, and ultimately that's what we're all pushing for. The second point is of experience, and we talk about experiences. Everyone talks about experiences again, but it's not something necessarily people fully understand. Experiences or deliver. I'd like to think we've done a few in our times, but it doesn't necessarily mean to say we can always do them, because it really comes down to having a client with the balls to let you go and do it. And and who are actually willing to listen and do things differently and not just say, well, I saw this, can I have something that looks like that? Because that isn't going to work. The moment it's out there, it's done, it's over. It's not new news. But experiences need to be meaningful, memorable, emotional. They need to be something that you can't resist. They need to be something that you see and you just want to drop everything and go over and have a look. You don't necessarily have to get involved in the experience either. We look at the number of people who sometimes get involved in a particular sort of one-on-one experience. It's quite few. If you look at the return on investment for how much money a brand or a retailer has spent on that particular engagement, it's horrendous. You'd never dream of doing it. But if you're doing something really exciting, look at the number of people that are standing around watching. They're gaining an indirect experience. But they've all got their phones out. They're photographing it, filming it, sending it out. This is expanding, it's amplifying. And more so, people talk about their experiences. They take their experiences away with them. Buying a gift at a gift or buying something for yourself at an airport is something that's historically just sort of stuck with air travel. But buying something that you can take home and you can engage. People have a sort of a yearning for social currency. And if I'm bringing home something which is exciting and interesting, and I have a great story to tell about it, and I'm now passing that story on to you, and I'm engaging you with a wonderful, wonderful piece of information.
The story's got a legacy.
It has a legacy, and it's no different to what it used to be in the olden days, where people would go and buy a fake Rolex on the basis that when they got back they'd go, I bought a fake Rolex because I was traveling. That's the exciting part about it. We just moved on a lot further, and now people just want to be able to want that same experiences, passing on those similar things. I had a great time in an airport. It was meaningful, memorable. I love the brand that I bought, but also I love the retailer. How many, or show me a shopper who walks out of a travel retail store and says, those guys, those retailers, they're amazing. A lot of them don't remember the retailer's name. They just remember the brand they went in for. So we've got to do something different. And that is the basic. We've got to understand what experience is. And experience shouldn't just be little pockets that are delivered by brands. It should be the whole thing. The whole thing needs to be a wonderful experience for everybody. 2
points before you go to your number three. The first one is there are shackles involved. Shackles from airport to retailer, shackles from retailer to brand that actually precludes a lot of genuine new experiences because everything needs to be boxed and coxed. The other issue is that the education of the brands themselves, a lot of them want to just follow a formulaic, just want to follow a formula, don't want to do anything different, want to say, I like that particular activation, I wanted some of that, please. There's not enough creativity, arguably. What are you doing as a business, Circle Square, to try and kind of educate your clients to be more ballsy, to take greater risks, to understand what's needed in today's marketplace?
It's a good question. We are taking some quite interesting steps, actually. One of the things we started to do is to limit decision makers, because creativity that's decided by committee tends not to be creative.
It's a washout.
The best work we've ever done is typically for smaller brands or challenger retailers, whereby they're willing to take risk, and also they tend not to have as many staff, quite frankly. So you tend not to have as many people involved in the mix, because people feel the need for some reason to get involved and make a change, because they're making a change, they're adding value, aren't they? But actually it's the opposite. The opposite is true. You need somebody who's willing to listen to what we can offer. Our superpower is creativity. That's what we're about. You don't come to us for our retail logistics. You come to us for our creativity, because we can do things differently. We've got a track record that proves it. What's fascinating is people that come to us and say, you guys were the guys that did that amazing thing we saw that totally was pioneering, it totally broke the mold. We want that. And you go, okay, well, obviously we're not going to give you that. We're going to give you something different. And they're like, oh, okay, fine. Well, that's fine. We want this new thing, this new wonderful thing that you've got an idea for. Great. But here's our brief. And you're staggered by the fact that the brief is so far removed from what they're actually asking for. And you have to jump through so many hoops to get there. You can almost tell before you've finished reading the first page of your 14-page brief that you're not going to be able to achieve what they're after. And that's scary. We have recently a brief that was directed for young millennials. A client very, very clearly said it was for young millennials. Yet we didn't have a single young millennial in the client's decision-making team. And I'm afraid to say, if you're targeting at a particular group, it should be viewed and judged by that group, not by somebody who's spent 30, 40 years in marketing and knows everything. Of course they do. Their knowledge is incredible, but their knowledge of this particular situation isn't. So they're the ones that should be giving us a great brief, but we should be judging it based on the people who are going to respond to it. Ultimately, it's our shoppers who will vote with their feet if we're doing it right.
Are we going to bear witness to some of your client base doing radical things in the coming months?
I think it's going to be a challenge because initially, short term, we are in a I think a state of shock. I mean, we're almost in a state of mourning, probably is a more realistic word. We all had a good thing going, and suddenly it doesn't seem like we do anymore. And we've seen some sort of knee-jerk reactions. We've had some people who are talking about taking their physical retail budget and just sort of throwing it all at digital, which seems to me like they're saying, well, I'm in Vegas, I'm going to just take my stack of chips and put it all on red and let's go with it. I could walk out of here and it works, or I might walk out of here and it doesn't. We've seen and we've also, I think probably more importantly, we've just had nervousness and a feeling that there must be a way to do some of these things without really spending any money. Here's my list of requirements. I have no budget. Off you go. Now we're very happy as creative minds to get involved and use our creativity to find solutions, but those solutions, they aren't free. None of them are, because you're ultimately changing something, and that has to come from somewhere. And that's a difficult thing, because where that money comes from, right now, we have the whole industry in crisis. It shouldn't just be on one group, be it brands or retailers or the airport, to come up with those solutions. There has to be collaboration to find a way and find that pot of money that we can do something with.
Let's just stay on money.
Yes.
This is your third leg. It's about price.
Price. It's the third pillar, if you like, is price. We all travel with a smartphone in our pocket. In fact, I've seen many of our lovely Chinese shoppers travel with 2 or 3, frequently using 2 simultaneously, one talking to somebody back home, one checking sales data, price points, and so forth. We're all connected. We all have a way of knowing whether something is a good price point or not. In fact, often we find in Asia that there are really good price points. We shouldn't be fooled into thinking everywhere is like one location. There are really good price points. But we don't need to be talking about price. We don't need to be talking about offers and price offs. Because whilst it looks like it works, because their price comes off, the numbers go up, I see a pattern, therefore let's do price offs. It's not adding any value. When we change the conversation away from price and we talk about experience and we get into personalisation and uniqueness, limited editions. Just share bloody great stuff you're doing that makes you want to get involved. No one asks about the price. It's completely different.
That's right.
So we've got a duty to offer a brilliant product in a wonderful environment, in a way our shopper wants to shop, which is why those are the three, for me, the three pillars of what we need to do to get it right.
Let's talk about phygital now.
Phygital.
Yeah.
Yes.
How would you set about defining the new phygital in today's environment?
Right. Phygital. It's a weird word, isn't it? Sadly, it's probably one we're going to be using quite a lot more. Physical retail. We all understand what physical retail is, or we think we do. Certainly, travel retail hasn't really changed its physical retail since, I don't know, Shannon Airport, maybe. Sorry, it's a bit harsh, but you kind of get the sense of what I'm saying, which is the idea of shelves full of product and you know.
Arguably, it's simply not evolved.
And a transaction.
And it's behind the curve. We discussed this earlier.
Yeah, it is. It's a shelving unit full of product, and it's a transaction point. Now, what we have seen from in a more domestic retail world, where I think they are certainly ahead of our curve right now, things like vast stock holdings, transactions can all take place digitally. They can all be moved to a digital model. It doesn't mean to say that that's damaging what we're doing in physical. In fact, it's helping us.
It's creating new space.
It's creating new space. Space we need right now. We need right now on a topical basis because of the social distancing, but on a longer term basis because we need our physical space to be experience led. We need people to come into it. And the weird thing is, physical drives digital, digital drives physical, and physical drives digital, and so on and so forth. And it happens all the time. It's frustrating now to walk into any store. I mean, a perfect example I had, looked online, looking for some garden furniture. Why not? We're all stuck at home for so long, weren't we? Look for some garden furniture. Look it up online. Looks great. Pop into store to have a look at it firsthand. Didn't have it. Okay, not a problem, because I can buy it digitally, but I can't in that store. They don't have the method for me to do that. Now this is a bump in the curve, because actually I should be able to seamlessly switch between them whenever I want to. And I should be able to finish that purchase, maybe sitting at home on the sofa with a glass of wine. I could do that when I'm buying a car, so why can't I do it when I'm buying a piece of furniture? And in travel retail is no different. There's nothing to stop me from being driven into store by something which is digital, which tells me what an incredible experience I'm going to have. We just have to make sure we use that space properly for experience. Apple have been doing it for years. There aren't queues of people standing in front of cash registers at Apple, are there? There aren't shelf loads full of MacBook Pros on the wall for people to go and pick up. No, it's about experience. You can wander in there with your computer and go and sit at the Genius Bar and have a chat to somebody. You can go and sit in the sort of there's a presentation theatre. Someone could teach you how to use your photos in a different way, or how to use some of the software that will enable you to enhance them and file them in a particular way. All of this is leading to a wonderful positivity about the brand. But I can make that purchase at home. Now that's a difficult thing for travel retail to get their heads around, because it's always been about who owns the sale.
Yes.
And the danger is that sale at my departure airport, on board, so it's an in-flight sale, or is it an arrival sale? Because there are three different groups there who may all want their piece of that sale. And it's difficult, because wouldn't it be brilliant?
The consumer doesn't differentiate.
The consumer
just wants the product.
The consumer just wants a product. And we've had challenges before. We were actually trying to do a wonderful thing years ago with Glenfiddich, and we were trying to find a brilliant way to make the purchase in store come to life. And the idea was that when you made a purchase of one of their wonderful variants, give you a little sample pack that you could take on board your aircraft, where you have so much more time than you do in the airport. You're completely chilled, completely relaxed. You can stick on your headphones, tune into Secret Channel 19, whereupon the master distiller appears and takes you through your own wonderful tasting that you now have because you're part of our lovely team. I mean, what a brilliant way of putting that all together. Problem is, hang on a minute, that airline wants that sale.
Yeah.
And they're not willing for you to buy that on the plane. The airline obviously want that sale, the retailer wants that sale. But there must be a way for them to work together. There must be a way for them to work together and to enhance the experience so that shoppers fall in love with shopping in an airport.
Once again.
Once again.
So, if there were three things that you wanted to get airports and retailers to involve themselves in brands to, involve themselves right now, that has an immediate application, that is viable, affordable, what would they be?
Well, from what I explained about the combination of physical and digital, I think it's really important that we accept now that our industry is in some element of crisis, and we need to collaborate, properly collaborate, for the sake of our sales, and that those sales aren't lost to the likes of Amazon, etc. We want to keeping a sale within GTR, Global Travel Retail, is the most important thing. So number one, I think we've got to share data. We've got to have a kind of an amnesty on this, and we've got to share information, because it's for the good of the industry as a whole. It's for the greater good. That information will be coming from particular areas, no doubt. I mean, the key one that seems to be there is the airline data. And I'm sure airlines don't really want to give that up because that's incredibly important for them. And it may lead to them having their own sales. But if there can be some agreement between airline, airport, retailer and brand as to how exactly they're going to divide it up and how they're going to share this data, that would be the most important thing, because as I've mentioned to you already today, domestic retail would kill for our shopper demographic. They would kill for it. They've got nothing like it. The spending power that we have is huge, but we're just not doing enough. We're leaving vast numbers of people who aren't interested in going into store. There's no reason for them to go into store. Why would they? Why would they, with how it is right now? But sharing of that data, we can at least target them early, pre-travel. We can at least tell them what amazing experiences they can have, not just in store, but in the airport as a whole. And true, airport experiences may need to change across the board. We may need to have other things going on in the airport besides retail. Ultimately, the airport isn't just another shopping mall. It is an airport. We've got to look at it in a wider sense. But certainly the first thing we need to do, share data, help each other out.
Number two?
The second thing, we need people to take risks. It's something I have said so many times in the last few days, weeks, months, and it's a challenge. But if you can't take risks right now, when can you take risks? In fact, the risk are relatively protected by the fact that we don't have the passenger numbers we used to have. So if you're gonna take some, if you're gonna do it now, do it now.
Yes.
And you know, looking at the I think it was Rory was talking about optimization versus experimentation, and optimization being doing something you know, whereas experimentation doing something you don't know, but you'll learn from it. We've got to learn new things. We've got to learn new ways. So it's only through taking risks and making and challenging the conventions that we will be able to move forward.
It's a subtle balancing of the books, isn't it? Really,
It is.
But it has to be measurable.
Yeah, and also metrics are very tough because, again, as a brand, if you have, I mean, I mentioned Apple earlier on. You can walk into the Apple store and you can have an incredible, memorable, emotional experience, but then because the involvement level of buying, say, a MacBook is quite a lot of money. You might not want to do it there and then, but you might buy it 2 weeks later. That sale isn't in that store, but it works for Apple because they have a sale. Difficult one for us because, again, we have these sort of set channels. Becomes difficult to monitor. We don't really know how many people actually genuinely turn up with an idea that they're going to buy something. 69% apparently of purchases are planned in travel retail. Really? I don't know. And even if it is 69%, what are we doing so badly that we're not encouraging people to buy other stuff? We should have an incredible environment. I mean, I know from back in the days doing some of the kind of the crazy stuff, the kind of the Hendrix bathtubs and what have you. And you said to me earlier on about airports needing to relax some of the restrictions. None of those things met any of the airport restrictions, by the way. They were all too tall or too wide or blocked of vision and so forth. But the moment you do something that's really groundbreaking, people start to ignore those things and say, well, hang on a minute, actually this is going to work brilliantly. And it wasn't so much the fact that it was a bathtub, it was the fact that people who were so surprised to see it wandered over. People who weren't going to go into the store at all ended up going into the store and buying a Toblerone and leaving. So it didn't necessarily have a direct effect on that particular person, but what it did was it had an incremental shift. It increased store penetration. The first place we put it, that one, was in Barcelona Airport, and it received something crazy like just under a 4,000% sales increase, or sales uplift, should I say. But what was more telling was the fact that Barcelona Airport, after our month-long slot, which we had paid for to put it in store, said, can we keep it? Can we keep it? Yeah. Because it was working for them. And when they see something working for them, it's bringing in those people that they wouldn't have got. So that's a different thing. That's a different relationship. Those people are coming in to a new experience. And if you can provide them with a wonderful experience, and it isn't a bit of a letdown when you're in store, then you do have those incremental sales. And if you do walk out with a pair of Ray-Bans, some cosmetics, a Toblerone.
A sale is a sale.
Yes.
So what's the last item on your list?
Creativity. Creativity isn't free, but it's certainly cheap when you compare it to rolling out all of these spaces and all of these sort of freestanding display units and so forth, to tick all the boxes that people normally want to have. But creativity can be exciting. Creativity doesn't need to be in the usual places and do the usual things. And my team love to be challenged by new and exciting brands. Challenger brands, as I've mentioned before, are so much more exciting because they're willing to take those risks and because they tend to not have such a huge number of people making the decisions. But if you can make creativity your own asset, if it can be something that your brand or as a retailer, you stand for, people love you because people love creativity. People love culture and creativity. It's a simple thing to do. So from our perspective, we know we've got that one covered in abundance. And we love the challenge of doing things new. But that's it. Creativity can allow you to do things new, can challenge the mold. And for our world of the new normal, it should all be about creative. That should be our new.
A suitable point on which to end the interview. Philip Handley, thanks for your time.
Thank you.